The sound of running water always felt like a small escape for me. That evening, I let the shower cascade over my tired shoulders, the warmth washing away the long hours I had spent at work. My name is Daniel Carter, a 32-year-old architect from Seattle. My life had always been planned, structured, and calculated, every detail precise, every line straight, every building a reflection of my control. But the one thing I could never truly design was love. It wasn't that I had given up on it entirely. I had dated here and there, but nothing ever seemed to stick. My friends told me I was too focused on my work, too obsessed with deadlines and perfection. Maybe they were right. I often told myself that I'd have time for love later, once the next project wrapped, once I earned enough, once I found the right one. But as the years went by, later kept slipping further away. That evening, however, something happened that shattered the routine I had so carefully built, and it all began with a single, unintentional moment. I didn't hear the apartment door open. My cousin Emily had the spare key, and sometimes she stopped by unannounced to water my plants when I was working late. But Emily wasn't alone that night. She had brought her best friend, Rachel Stevens, along. Rachel had recently moved back into town after years away in Boston, and Emily thought it would be nice to reintroduce her to familiar faces. I had met Rachel once before, years ago, back when Emily first introduced us at a small barbecue. She had been warm, funny, and quick with a smile, the kind of person who filled a room with ease. But after that summer, she moved away for school, and life moved us in different directions. I hadn't thought much about it since. And then fate intervened. I had forgotten to lock the bathroom door. I was mid-shower, humming a tune absent-mindedly, when I suddenly heard the faintest creak of hinges. A gasp followed. My heart nearly stopped. "Daniel? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." Rachel's voice was unmistakable, though it had matured since I last remembered. My hand shot for the towel hanging nearby, fumbling as the shower water kept pouring. "Rachel," I stammered, wrapping the towel hastily around myself. "What are you doing here?" Her cheeks flushed crimson as she spun around, covering her eyes with her hands. "Emily, she said you weren't home yet. I didn't mean to, oh my goodness, I'll just..." But in her panic, she tripped over the small rug at the doorway. Instinct kicked in. I reached out to steady her, dripping wet and flustered, our awkward laughter filling the steamy air. For a brief second, our eyes met and time seemed to pause. It wasn't the clumsy encounter itself that changed everything. It was the way she looked at me afterward. Embarrassed, yes, but also with a softness that lingered, as though she saw something beyond the surface. When I finally stepped out of the bathroom fully dressed, Rachel was sitting at the kitchen counter, her face buried in her hands as Emily teased her mercilessly. "I swear I didn't mean to," Rachel groaned. Emily laughed. "You should have seen your face." I cleared my throat, trying to play it cool. "Well, that's one way to make an entrance." Rachel peeked through her fingers, her eyes sparkling with equal parts mortification and amusement. "You'll never let me live this down, will you?" "Probably not," I teased, though my chest felt strangely lighter than it had in months. What began as an embarrassing accident turned into hours of conversation that night. Emily eventually left, but Rachel and I kept talking about her years in Boston, about my work in architecture, about books, music, and the countless small things we had in common. The awkwardness of the shower incident faded quickly, replaced by an ease that felt rare. Over the next few weeks, Rachel and I began seeing more of each other. At first, it was casual, coffee after work, late-night walks by the waterfront, shared laughter over childhood stories. But soon, those moments stretched longer, and the goodbyes became harder. Rachel wasn't like anyone I had ever met. She carried both strength and gentleness in the same breath. She had gone through her own struggles, her parents' divorce, her years of living alone in a busy city, the loneliness of chasing dreams far from home. And yet, she carried herself with grace, never letting bitterness cloud her kindness. I found myself looking forward to her messages, her laughter, the way she listened without judgment. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about deadlines or projects when I closed my laptop at night. I was thinking about her. But with those feelings came fear. Fear that I would ruin it. Fear that she'd see me as too guarded, too careful, too closed off. Fear that the timing wasn't right. One rainy evening, as we sat in a quiet cafe, Rachel leaned in and asked, "Daniel, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you ever hold back? Like you're afraid to let someone in?" Her words pierced me deeper than she knew. I stared into my coffee, watching the ripples. "All the time," I admitted softly. "I've always been good at building walls. It's safer that way." Rachel's gaze softened. "I get that. But sometimes, the best things happen when you let those walls come down." I met her eyes then, and something unspoken passed between us. The air felt charged, fragile yet undeniable. The turning point came unexpectedly. One night, after a long day, Rachel came over to my apartment. We cooked dinner together, her famous pasta, my attempt at garlic bread, and after eating, we just sat by the window, listening to the rain. At some point, I found myself telling her things I hadn't shared with anyone. My doubts, my regrets, the moments I wished I had taken risks but didn't. And she listened, not trying to fix me, not judging, just being there. When I finally fell silent, Rachel reached over, her hand brushing mine. "Daniel, you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be real." That was the moment I realized I didn't want to keep holding back. That the fear of losing her was smaller than the fear of never truly knowing what could be. Our relationship grew from that night on, not through grand gestures, but through quiet consistencies. Grocery runs together, long drives with no destination, laughter over burnt pancakes, comfort during bad days. We weren't perfect, but we were real. And every now and then, we'd joke about that first encounter. "Remember when you walked in on me showering?" I'd tease, and Rachel would groan, hiding her face, before bursting into laughter. But deep down, we both knew that moment had been more than just an accident. It had been the crack in the walls I built, the spark that lit something neither of us expected. Months later, as we walked along the pier under the evening sky, I stopped and took her hand. "Rachel," I said, my heart pounding, "I don't know what the future looks like. I don't know what challenges we'll face. But I do know this: I don't want to face them without you." Her eyes glistened as she smiled, squeezing my hand. "I don't want to either." And just like that, everything truly changed.